Hi, chicken philosophers! Woo! Today, as you know, is the final video of this particular cycle of 15 videos known as the Halloween of 2515. BT's going to be reading a bit of Meccan Revelations. I do air quotes because he doesn't end up doing much reading of Meccan Revelations, but anyway. I hope that you enjoy it. Just to let you know, he's a little more unhinged than usual. All right. Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy, the Meccan Revelations, part 68, in which I pick up right where Edward left off in part 67. If this is your first time on Chicken Philosophy or your first time on the Meccan Revelations playlist, then feel free to click there. The Meccan Revelation series. That's the playlist. You can start with part 1. You can surf the playlist up and down. You can see what's going on. Whatever you want to do. Hi! Oh my gosh! I'm pretty excited because this is part 15 of a cycle of 15. That's always very exciting for me. I don't know about anyone else, but anyway, that doesn't matter now, does it? Alright, so this is all about Sufism. The Sufis, you've heard of them. When people are being very Islamophobic, then you can pull out some Sufi stuff and say, hey, would people who are like what you're describing write poetry like this? And if they know just a little, then they'll say, that's not Islam, that's Sufism. Wrong. Sufism is mystical Islam, Islamic mysticism. And this, of course, is the point in the cycle of 5, not the cycle of 15, where all the folks who clicked the old subscribe button, by the way, click like and subscribe, might as well just do that now, when they saw the Martin Luther, they're like, Martin Luther? I like Martin Luther. Oh, I want to watch a channel where they talk about Martin Luther. Now they're like, Islam? Oh my God, what the fuck? So, yeah, it goes up, it goes down. It's predictable. It's funny. It's absurd. We're all laughing at you. Not you, the fuckers who were like, oh yeah, Christianity, oh, ew, Islam, come on. And people who say, ew, Christianity and Islam, that makes sense, that's fair. But to pick one and then against the other, it's like, okay, you're a fan of cricket, admit it. You have your favorite team, you have the team you hate. And so if somebody's wearing a shirt from the opposing team, you're like, I hate that team. Yeah, but you love cricket. So, Abrahamics, unite. Fucking, all the players shake hands and pat each other on the back? India and Pakistan, shaking hands, hugging. Anyway. Alright, so where were we? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter all that much. How's the music? Is it good? I hope so. I'll go ahead and do the beverage and the incense, and then we'll get to the reading, because the more reading we do, the better, because we're in the beginning. So we read the entire first volume here, and now we're in the beginning of the second volume, which means we're in the, part of the book that's all introduction. And I've softened on introductions. You might recall I get a little irritated with introductions in the past. But, Michel Chodkiewicz has worn me down. I'm down for some Michel Chodkiewicz. I like his way of looking at things. But he shouldn't be mistaken for any Ibn Arabi. He may very well be a Sufi, though. But he's one of the white Sufis. It's kind of like, oh, okay. All right, I see you, Sinead. No, she was not. I don't know what denomination it was, but I think I would know if she was a Sufi when she at the latter part of her life. Anyway. All right, so the beverage today is just some black coffee. Cheers. Got to be more careful with that than usual because I do not want any coffee stains on my regalia. Oh, rumors of my being a ghost or whatever have been greatly exaggerated. You should know by now that whoever's sitting in front of the camera has their own spin, has their own bias. So when people talk about me like I don't exist, or that I'm antiquated, or that I'm former self or whatever, like, yeah, for the newer ones, I could be seen as former, like as in previous, as in older, as in original, as in having felt too restricted by the limits of just being an immortal, all-powerful magician. I have decided to, manifest in these smaller forms, these specific forms, like Gwydion, Edward, Pymander, So keep that in mind going forward. All right, so that's oud. I didn't mention this is oud. So we did coffee, then oud. So we're definitely in a Middle Eastern vibe, if you know what I'm saying. Coffee and shit. Not shit, but I mean, there's always shit, but it goes without saying. Okay, I guess that's it for the preamble. Then now we'll do the Hafiz poem. So let's change the music and we'll get into a vibe. I've been kind of like, sometimes it's good to read old journals, look at old pictures, not just for the sake of going, oh, those people that are just like, can't be in present time because they're like, oh, you don't know what it was like. Oh, no. But it's good at times to get back in touch. There's that ritual to go back in time, some of you might be familiar with, where you kind of connect with a former self of yours, or like remember, like, oh, I used to do that. I used to think that way. I used to approach it that way. Like there's some cobwebs that have grown in various corners of my beingness that maybe I can clear out. Maybe I can revisit some of these things. So some of you might have noticed a couple of retro things happening on some of the other channels. Enough about that. We'll get to that at the end. So anyway, I feel like I had a more reverence. I know, like, it's, knowing me, you would assume that, there was an I at the beginning of that and you just couldn't hear it. No, more reverence toward the poetry of Hafiz. I mean, the more poetry of Hafiz we've read, the more we've run into some that were, I won't say stinkers, but just like don't translate well into our present day mindset, But yeah, they're often very good. They can be like a mandala, a way of connecting with a certain essence, a certain way of relating to your great self, a way of relating to God, if you will, for those of you who are into that sort of thing. I can get into it. I can groove with it, Sometimes I kind of like get into a space where I can't, but I can cross over. So we'll try to cross over into, into that today. Let's see what happens. Let's see what Allah has in store for us. Ooh, speaking of retro chicken philosophy, haven't heard that in a little while. That's this. If you want to hear that whole song instead of this, maybe go listen to that whole thing and then come back once you got the vibe. All right. Here we go. The warrior. The warriors tame the beast in their past, so that the knight's hoofs can no longer break the jeweled vision in the heart. The intelligent and the brave Open every closet in the future and evict all the mind's ghosts who have the bad habit of barfing everywhere. For a long time, the universe has been germinating in your spine. Don't forget to take B6, B12, and vitamin C when you drop acid. Helps with the spine thing. Mostly the C. The B6 is for the... Never mind. But only a pir, or which is a saint, Persian for saint, only a saint has the talent, the courage to slay the past giant, the future anxieties. The warrior wisely sits in a circle with other men, gathering the strength to unmask himself with a capital H. Then sits giving like a great illumined planet on the earth. That was a good one. I'm glad we prepared for that one. I feel like reading something just a little bit off the schedule. I hope that you'll indulge me just for a moment. This is from Smaller Mouse. This whole book can be found inside of the New World Empire and the Interdimensional Coffee House. So if you're wondering which book to get of mine, get this one. It includes this and a couple others. Okay. Page 60. This is called Reeb Hosni. And it's a true story. Reeb Hosni. You remember Saddam Hussein? Anybody old enough to remember Saddam Hussein? Something funny happened 7 years ago. Pio was at work, I was at home, and I ordered myself some lunch from Swiggy. And then it said, your delivery partner is on the way. His name is Saddam Hussein. It's not something that comes up too often when you're in the United States. Generally, folks with the surname Hussein don't name their sons Saddam there. Or if they do, maybe there are, if you can look in your phone book and see. Do they still have those big, thick things? Been away for a while. Anyway, Hosni and Hussein are basically the same name. And, so Reeb, which you might know is my surname, hyphen Hosni is the name of this. I'm going to read it now. Okay. African gold, religious artifacts, and ancient papyrus documents abound in the museums of Paris, London, New York, and Berlin for tourists to marvel at in detached curiosity, judgment, or sometimes wonder. By the way, I wrote this. This is my book, if you're wondering what the fuck's he reading. I spent the better part of my life studying these mysteries through the eyes of what has come to be termed the Western mystery tradition. Meanwhile, in Africa, their ancient forms of spirituality have been labeled evil by foreign invaders and forcibly replaced with Christianity and Islam. So one day, I left home, brought some of my books, my old Egyptian headdress, and my knowledge to the border of South Africa and Zimbabwe, where their Scientology headquarters used to be. There, you can find the world's first traditional African-based school of all the mysteries in the world, from Buddhism to Freemasonry. After I performed their neophyte initiation and a Hierophant installation for their founder, we, per their custom, chanted Hanya Shingyo, which they call the heart of the coup, and called upon all our ancestors to guide us while wearing black robes and baby powder on our faces. When I left, they gave me a gift, a very rare book on the mysteries of my ancestors, the Nords. Afterward, I came to Kathmandu without a plan. I knew I had to see where the Buddha was born, and I had 3 months to get it done. I woke the first morning and hesitantly went outside. The words, "What am I doing in Kathmandu?" were ringing in my ears until I heard the now quite familiar rendition of Om Mani Padme Hum.
Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani.
Playing from a store selling statues and incense, and everything else you'd find in only the coolest shops back home. I still call California home when I wrote this. I wrote this in 2017. Anyway. I'd lost my jacket in the transition, so I bought a new one and had breakfast. On my way back to the hotel, I got lost. I ended up at a wedding where I met Ajay. He and I started talking about Tibetan Tantric Buddhism, and I came to discover that his ancestry is Indian, but his family lives in Nepal. He was a Hindu by birth and tradition, and Tibetan Buddhist by choice, and painted traditional thangka at a local school with a single yak hair and gold and lapis paint, if it wasn't obvious that the one that he's holding, that's the same one that's up above Pymander's head. Oh, hi Pymander. It's awkward. That was painted by Ajay, who I met in the story right here. Anyway, he showed me all the local sacred places. Then we took a cab to Bodhanath. We circled the stupa, and he taught me how to boldly cross the street with total trust that the cars would stop, per local custom. We went back to the 2 rooms in the brick village where the 11 members of his family slept on the floor, and I met his brothers, uncle, sisters-in-law, and nieces and nephews. I bought several thangka paintings, a year of kindergarten for 2 of the little ones, and several blankets, so they'd have a better winter. I taught the children some basic yoga poses, and the adults the Nyingma Tantric yoga meditation my dad had learned from Tibet via Hollywood Hills and Milan. They invited me to sleep on the floor with them, so I checked out of my hotel and moved in. I set up a speaker there and added some statues and sacred items to their house shrine, which was a wooden box in the corner of the bedroom, and they taught me how to make roti. Suddenly, sad news came. Their friend's young daughter had just died. No one knew exactly why, but she had been very sick. They had to begin 12 days of mourning, so they sent me on my way to Lumbini to see where the Buddha was born. After Lumbini, you have to go to Pokhara, Ajay's uncle Roshan said. What's in Pokhara? I inquired. You just have to go. Trust me, he said. I trusted him. I arrived in Lumbini and got lost. I asked a man with a motorcycle where the Mango Tree Hotel was, which Roshan had recommended. He knew the hotel because of the tree, but it had a new name now. Get on, he said, and I had my first of many rides on the backs of strangers' motorcycles in Nepal. I went, in the morning, to the temple which contains the 2,300-year-old ruins of the first Buddhist temple built by King Ashoka, around the marker stone, which local tradition 300 years after the Buddha had lived said marked the very spot where he was born. I thought of Constantine in Jerusalem 300 years after Jesus, asking the locals which tomb was his, and taking their word for it. Without a time machine, it's the best intel we've got. First, I stood in line with the crowd, and I got a look at the stone. I connected with it, bowed sincerely, and went outside to meditate under the big Bodhi tree there. Pilgrims from the Philippines, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, and India all wanted to take selfies with the strange, lone white man among them, and eventually I made the long walk to the Japanese pagoda. Along the way, in the marketplace, I met Narayan, who hand paints Buddhist statues. That evening, I went back to the white temple built around the ancient temple, and this time it was empty. I was able to spend some proper time before the marker stone and asked Lord Buddha to help me along my path. I offered up, or down, what I had brought with me, a great deal of heartache. With a clean heart, my paternal grandfather answered my ancestor call from back in Africa, and I felt him guide me back to Narayan, where I bought all of the statues he had painted and met his brother, wife, and son, and they took me out to dinner. I had decided that yes, I would open a yoga studio when all was said and done. I still haven't gotten around to that. Maybe later in life. We'll see. And there I would sell tanka from my friends in Bodha and statues from my new friends in Lumbini. Afterward, I went back to the Japanese temple and chanted Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. There's two different, there's the more like traditional Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, and then there was like the guy that went off and started his own like rogue thing, and they chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So if you're familiar with this, you might be like, why is he pronouncing it funny? It's because you're part of the heretical one. Yeah, it's okay. Or at least your coworker brought you that one time to that guy's house and you sat in front of it. Anyway, then after another motorcycle ride, I found myself back at my hotel. It was late and time to turn in, perhaps, but a little voice told me to go across the street and order coffee. Shortly afterward, 3 fellow travelers arrived and stopped at my table. There were 3 empty chairs at my table, so I motioned toward the chairs, and they joined me. They were from the UK, Holland, and Germany, and it was my first time interacting with fellow travelers since leaving California. Late that night, after much beer and merriment, we retired to our hotels. The next day, I got on a bus to Pokhara. I was planning to stay in a hotel, but my assigned seat was beside a traveler from the UK who was staying at Nepalaya Eco Hostel, so I decided to stay there instead. I met travelers from Spain, Sardinia, Austria, Holland, UK, Sweden, Germany, Malaysia, France, and one from New Caledonia, who I later interviewed for one of my podcasts, To Be a Yogi. Between the late nights on the roof drinking Gorka and Everest and smoking hash with the traveler from Spain, and the early mornings on the roof taking their complimentary yoga classes, I found I had to stay a day longer than I'd planned. I also went across the lake twice and up the hill to the Japanese pagoda. I met a Malaysian traveler as he was praying in the middle of the night. I told him I was a fan of Sufi poetry. "You know about Sufi poetry?" he asked. I said, "The great religions are like sinking ships. The poets are like lifeboats." "That is good for business, isn't it, Hafiz?" And he took off his prayer cap and gave it to me. I met the son of the owner of a local Tibetan Buddhist shop, and we talked for hours over tea. In the end, he gave me the number of his friend Tashi, who is a monk at the International Buddhist Academy in Bodha, so I could interview him for my podcast, What Would Yeshi Do, upon my return to Kathmandu. That interview is right here. You can check it out now or after we're finished, whatever you like. I came back to Kathmandu and decided to take my Ayurvedic doctor friend Yogesh's advice and stay at Hotel Horizon with his friend Devraj. There I met a traveler from Guangzhou, China. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. And we went to Bhaktapur Durbar Square and explored the local area around Tamil, including several restaurants and a spa. Then she left to reunite with her French boyfriend in Thailand, who had been watching our exploits on social media, prompting him to apologize for whatever it was he'd done, which had resulted in her traveling alone to Nepal. I decided to take a yoga class at the studio near my hotel one morning. There was a Dutch couple there, too. 10 minutes after the class was scheduled to start, I called the number on the sign to ask where the teacher was. The owner told me where to find the key, and I became the new teacher. I went on a trek to the villages where Devraj's parents and grandparents lived, Baseri and Kahari, and we concluded the 10 days by drinking the beer called Gorkha in the city called Gorkha, where the Gurkhas are from. Then, after spending a week with many Dutch people, and another week with several Indian baseball teams, Taro, a businessman from Osaka, checked into the room beside mine and introduced me to the Japanese side of Kathmandu. Having done business in Kathmandu for 20 years, he introduced me to his contacts here. See, I was in Kathmandu when I was writing this. And we dined in all the restaurants, saw shows in casinos, and I stayed up late every night quite happily listening to his live gypsy jazz guitar performances, one of which you can find on Gwydion's Astral podcast right there. Then teaching yoga each following morning on less and less sleep. He gave me a lot of advice about my plans to build a yoga studio and offered to be my contact in Japan for anything Japanese I wanted to sell there and to organize retreats for Japanese people. Who knows, I might get back into yoga, but anyway. Eventually he left and I caught up on sleep. One night I decided to wander out into the night. I ended up in Durbar Square and found a small fire where sat Rahis Hasni, the Indian Sufi to whom Taro had introduced me. Over the hours which followed, the crowd around the fire included several locals, 2 Chinese women, and a yogini from Russia. I expressed my strong interest in Sufism, so Rahis began teaching me. I learned some basic moves and prayers, and we sang Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah. Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah, ma fi qalbi ghayrullah, Nur Muhammad sallallah, la ilaha illallah, Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah, ma fi. Rolling our heads around until we fell down. In the end, I kissed his hand and he placed it on my head and named me Reeb Hasni. He gave me a sapphire ring and said, wear this ring every day, and within 40 days you will meet the woman of your dreams, the woman you are meant to be with, probably in India.
Why are you walking like some kind of Portuguese soldier? Marching. Go on Goa Beach.
Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I forget why. I mean, I'm sure it had something to do with Hafiz and Sufis and that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get to today's reading, shall I? Okay. Where were we? Okay, picking up where we left off, this is Michel Chodkowitz in France, introducing Volume 2. This mention of the Insan Kamil in the Kitab al-Isra is an important reference to the concept, which is ubiquitous in the Futuhat. But when you put back in its initial context, it is of added interest in the way it explains the incident described in Chapter 1 of the Futuhat, the chapter that informs us of the supernatural circumstances of the work's composition. In the Kitab al-Isra, the words are actually described as coming from a mysterious being that the traveler, that is, Ibn Arabi himself, meets at the Arin Spring. In traditional Islamic geography, the name Arin refers to a mythic island or city located equidistant from the 4 cardinal points. It is thus clearly a symbolic name for the supreme spiritual center in the cosmic order, for what sacred anthropology calls the heart. The individual the Salik meets is called the Fatah, which might be translated as, quote, young hero, end quote. Fatah is the word from which Futuwa, which we have already seen, is derived, and it is charged with Quranic references since it appears in a number of surahs in regard to the 7 sleepers. Let me just play just a little snippet of audio from episode 10 of the Esoteric Nerd podcast, which is my podcast, just to kind of let you know of a possible connection, at least in my microcosm, between this tradition, which could be called Rosicrucian, not to be confused with Amorc. No, but anyway, yeah, let's just roll the audio while I drink some coffee.
It might be possible that the place where Christian Rosenkreutz got his name might have been connected to Ibn Arabi. Hear me out. Ibn Arabi was born in Al-Andalus, which would later be known as Spain, on July 28th, 1165, Gregorian. His father was widely known in Arabia as Al-Shaykh al-Akbar, the greatest shaykh, and he was also known in medieval Europe as Doctorus Maximus. Al-Andalus at that time had recently, about 100 years earlier or so, undergone what could be accurately referred to as a Neoplatonic revival. Great philosophers of ancient Greece, such as Plato, were being widely published in Arabic and discussed by a diverse population of Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Ibn Arabi's family were Sufis, and the title The Greatest Shaykh.
Fatah is the word from which Futuwa, which we have already seen, is derived, and it is charged with Quranic references, since it appears in a number of surahs in regard to the 7 sleepers, the companion of both Moses, and especially Abraham, who just destroyed the idols that his people were worshipping. Oh, that's where Muhammad got it. Alright, we can't blame. I mean, we know Moses. They're all a bunch of idol smashers, you know. Moses, Abraham, Muhammad. I don't think Jesus smashed any idols. They stopped smashing idols. I think the early church got back into it, though. It's sort of an Abrahamic thing. And honestly, like, aside from the fact that it's rude, and I personally like idols, and I like being able to relate with the divine or aspects of the divine or the self or aspects of the self in specific ways. I don't think it's necessary to achieve an awareness of the emptiness of form and the form of emptiness. It's not necessary to smash form. In fact, it shows that you're still kind of tied to it if you need to smash it to get there. But, you know, baby steps. The Abrahamics might be on the first step. But the stairway is, you know, some of us were born on the 3rd and 4th step. So, you know, but like, we got to have respect for our elders, you know, Rosicrucians and Sufis and the rest. Anyway, sorry, what was I saying? I don't know. Whatever. Sorry. We were going to be respectful today, weren't we? who just destroyed the idols that his people were worshiping. In the chapter from his face, see, there's certain things that trigger me back into a state of disrespect. It happens for those who are watching everything. You know that it happens when I'm reading the words of Lord Buddha as well. Whenever he gets into his Nazi shit, I'm like, fucking Buddha, you're ruining it for me. Like, I used to like you, you know. Anyway. It's good when heroes fall. I've said it before, I'll say it again, because then that leaves room for you to grow and fill the spot and become the massive ego that you were born to be. Or the opposite of that, or something. I don't know, something paradoxical that hasn't been said before in words. It's not a trite cliche yet. It's not a meme yet. Maybe you can reach beyond. Maybe smash the memes. And I don't mean like have sex with them. You know, smash has more than one meaning. The third and fourth definition. Never mind. What are we talking about? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, really. I'm just happy to be here, you know. I don't know. Happy to be finishing the cycle of 15. I can do that thing where I make a 15 thing, cycle thing. You know the thing I mean. I don't know. I'll read a little more. I'm not going to make this a super long one. But, you know, it's not as long as it would have been if you hadn't cut off part of it, Abraham. Sorry. What are we doing here? I don't know. My brain is already rejecting this. Who just destroyed, yes, in the chapter from his famous Rasala, devoted to the Futuwa, Kushairi offered a definition of the Fatah that was inspired by the story of Abraham. The Fatah is the one who destroyed the idol. Okay, there's an end quote, but no beginning quote. Michelle, are you doing? Are you alive? Are you? Never mind. I'll just leave it alone. Sometimes people forget to put a beginning quote, but they put the end quote. Like Sonu. We all know Sonu. We're going to start book 7, the 7th and final of the Black books. Next time. I won't say tomorrow, but next time on Chicken Philosophy. So that's fun. That's something. The beginning of the cycle of 15 that's going to probably close 2025. I don't know what I'll call it. Christmas of 2025, 15 or something. I'll think about that later. So we're wrapping up. This is the one we're wrapping up. I'll talk about that. I'll read a little more, because I haven't hardly read any of this, so I'll at least read one paragraph. We're still haven't read one paragraph yet. Yes, the Fatah is the one who destroyed the idol, and he immediately adds the following pithy comment, quote, "And the idol of all men is their egos," end quote. Destroy the ego, destroy the idol, externalization of the shadow, so you have to go smash other people's idols, smash other people's egos, because your own ego, you get it, right? It's tying together all the different parts of the chicken wheel. That's what we do here. Anyway, all right, okay. In the Kitab al-Isra, the Fatah who appears to the pilgrim early in his journey is described as a being of a spiritual essence and is endowed with lordly attributes. Ooh. He explains that he was sent to prescribe taking off both sandals for those who are into that, for those with whom he came in contact. This is another Quranic reference, verse 20:12. Good year. It was the year Pymander was born. Which in Tasawwuf, and especially in Ibn Arabi, is interpreted to be a symbol for going beyond duality. Oh, taking off both sandals, going beyond duality. I dig it. Quote, "You are the cloud that covers your own sun. Learn your essential reality," end quote, he tells the traveler. So Ibn Arabi wrote about a guy who told him these things. Cool. He adds, quote, "Only he who rises up as far as my station understands my words." Hear, hear. Anybody has risen up to the level of my station, can understand my words? Yeah, there's one. Cool. Sorry. And only I rise up as far as my station. Well, there you go. End quote. And then he recites a poem that would later be used in the Futuhat. I'll keep reading. Where do you want me to lead you? He then asks. I want to reach the city of the prophet in search for the radiant station of red sulfur. That sounds alchemical, is the pilgrim's reply. One verse gives the Fata's reply. Before we get to that one verse, I don't usually go chasing footnotes, and the way they're arranged is pretty obnoxious here, but I think I should be able to find it without too much pain and agony. In Arabic alchemy, red sulfur, or al-kibrit al-ahmar, is the elixir via which silver is transformed into gold. You've heard of lead transforming into gold. This is silver transforming into gold. Perhaps a lunar thing into a solar thing. I don't know. I'm only familiar with that medieval, wacky, European peasant Christian version of this golden age. The same expression is sometimes used in Sufism as a symbol for spiritual realization. Right, okay. In a more general sense, red sulfur is a metaphor for what is valuable and inaccessible. So, okay, the three levels. Turning silver into gold, and then whatever that middle thing was. It's always hard to remember the middle things, right? And then whatever the last thing was. It's three definitions. Okay, then the one verse gives the Fata's reply. O you who search for the path that leads to the secret, turn back, for the entire secret is within you. Not like that. Well, okay. No, I mean, that might be one step to get there. When you're done smashing the idols, then you can do that. But eventually realize that within you means doesn't mean that. Except when it does. Sorry. I'm sorry. Not sorry at all. Okay, so, this the reading was short, but the episode was above average. And that concludes the cycle of 15 known as the Halloween of 2515. We did it! We made it all the way to the end. And now...
Hey, BT.
Hey, Pymander, how's it going? Is it alright if I do the end screens? Absolutely. I would love for you to do the end screens. Alright. So, the most recent Tipitaka episode was kind of a situation where some monks were disagreeing, and then it kind of results in a schism. I hear that orchestral rendition of Tool's Schism. It's good, brings back memories. That's up here. And if you want a little bit of a deep dive into the dark recesses of the mind of our old pal Gwydion, then you can hear him recite some of his recent poetry from the past couple months by clicking down here. Oh yeah, Gwydion's been going through it. That guy, he's got a screw loose. All right. Well, check out those end screens. Thank you, Pymander. And so next time it's going to be the beginning of a new cycle. Edward reading Carl Jung, as it was in the beginning, a Black and Blue episode. The next time you see me is going to be the part 1 of The Divine Pymander, the new book on the orange petal. So, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.